Members, good morning. It's the appointed time and we have a quorum. There are 7 funding applications proposed by the administration. Items number 1 to 4 were on the previous agenda and they haven't been discussed. The others are new proposals. Let me remind members that if there is any pecuniary, direct or indirect interest with the items under discussion, members please disclose the nature of the interest before you speak in accordance with Rule 83A of the Rules of Procedure. And I'd also like to draw members' attention to Rule 84 of the ROP in relation to voting on items with direct pecuniary interest. Item 1. Head 706 Highways. Last time we started the discussion of this item is paper number PWSC bracket 2015-16 number 14. It is Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macao Bridge, Hong Kong Boundary Crossing Facilities, Reclamation and Superstructures. This is a proposal to increase the approved project estimate by $5,461.1 million from $30,433 million to $35,895 million in money of the day prices. We have representatives from the Highways Department and the Transport and Housing Bureau. Members, would you please continue with your questions? Does any member wish to ask questions? Mr. Gary Fan. I would like to ask about the Hong Kong BCP facilities of the bridge, whether there is any room to scale it down. I see that there are mega projects with cost overrun, delay, and they've been competing for manpower in the labor market. Well, there are 2 areas. The Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macao Bridge will only allow vehicles with Hong Kong license registration and mainland registration, so there are restrictions. A couple of years ago with the driving holiday, it has caused controversy in Hong Kong. So I believe that the traffic volume will be different from the original estimate of the government. And in relation to the Y-shaped design, well, in Shenzhen there was supposed to be a landing point, but it was cancelled, and Shenzhen decided to build another connection. So even with the commissioning of the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macao Bridge, there will be competition from from Shenzhen and Zhuhai, because they have built their own connection. There is serious cost overrun already. If the traffic volume will not be as high as you estimated, would you consider scaling down the transport interchange plaza? Well, because it has only started in April. So would you consider scaling it down when you see that because if you wait till you actually see a drop in traffic volume, then it will be too late. Undersecretary for Transport and Housing. Perhaps I will defer to the Director for Highways. Thank you. I thank Mr. Fan for his question. In relation to the project schedule and cost, we have already considered all factors when we designed the contract. In the contract, there are arrangements for phase completion. If there are facilities that are not needed at the time when the bridge was commissioned, and they will only be needed when there is an increase in traffic volume, we will arrange for the contractors to complete that part of the work later. This is to extend the project period, thereby alleviating pressure on the project. We have already included the concerns and the considerations raised by Mr. Fan into the contract. And as to whether some of the projects will commence after the bridge has been completed. Well, if we leave all these parts to start after the bridge has been completed, there will be more constraint and the cost will be higher. And when the public is using the public are using the bridge, and when there is at the same time works going on, there will be inconvenience. Mr. Fan? Well, I think the director's view is different from mine. You said you will review to see if there will be an increase in traffic volume, but I told you that it will be lower. But you said that it may increase, and you said that if there is further delay, the cost will increase. And I said that because of the concurrent mega projects taking place, cost has been driven up. That's why I asked to see if there can be phased completion. That means the director doesn't agree with me that with the change of the Y-shape bridge and also the cancellation of the driving holiday, you think that would not make any difference to the project. You would maintain that the expected traffic volume will be the same as you previously projected. Director, when it comes to the dual Y-shape or single Y-shape design, we have already conducted a feasibility study. In relation to the single Y design, we have already considered pedestrian flow, vehicular flow. We have considered the pros and cons of the two designs. Now it's a single Y design, but we reckon that it will be supported as stated in the feasibility study. Mr. Lo Wai Kwok. Well, those speaking for the first time will be given priority. May I start? Yes, Mr. Lo. I'm more concerned about the tunnel section and the technical difficulties encountered. When it comes to technicality of the bridge, we see that it has high requirements technically, and it's a huge bridge. One section of the bridge is a tunnel. Members of the public may not be fully aware of that. And the construction of the tunnel section is by a special method. We're talking about 180 meters for each section of the tunnel. The structure will be built and they'll be transported to sea, and then it will be sunk to the bottom of the sea for construction. And there will be certain difficulties. A few months ago, that the National Reform and Development Commission has spoken about certain technical difficulties encountered. And it was one of them was about the use of caisson. And they have encountered a lot of difficulties, even in shallow water. So I would like to know what the progress is in relation to overcoming these technical difficulties. It says in the paper that is supposed to be fully commissioned at the end of 2016, and there will be great difficulties. So I would like to hear from the administration. Can anyone explain to us about the latest situation? So is it going to be the chief engineer, or is it going to be the project manager or the director for highways? As Mr. Low said, that the main bridge is will be massive, is about 6.7 meters. And when it comes to the caisson, well, it's actually tunnel, a submerged pipe. Each section will be about 180 meters. So for the entire 6.7 kilometers, there will be 33 such sections. And every section will be about 80,000 tons in weight. So it's as heavy as a carrier. So dragging it out to sea is not an easy task because the work will be affected by the tides. The deepest part is 45 meters under the sea level. We have to dredge before the structure is placed, and there are a lot of uncertainties because the seabed and the tide will affect the progress of our work. There has been times when we have dragged the structure to the sea, and it turned out to, and there were some difficulties, so the part had to be transported back to the factory. So far, there are 2 sections that has been put in place, but we need to identify suitable windows because we have to find the right time with the right climate, with the right tide. Can I ask you more about this? Well, you encounter technical difficulties, as the director said, that some of these technical difficulties have been overcome, and they have also encountered difficulties, and certain sections of the submerged sections have been, a submerged tube has been put in place. So what about the delay? Well, we have encountered a delay of about 6 months because of these immersed tube. We have to still identify suitable time frame to put in place these immersed tubes. There may be new difficulties.
Mr. Low, I have no follow-up question. Mr. Wu Chi-wai. Thank you, Chairman. In paragraphs 11 to 13 of the paper, the increase in plant material and labor costs was mentioned. The demands for these areas are grave, and as such, the tender quotations are rather high because the tenderers have to reserve more money in order to secure the necessary plants, materials, and labor. My question is, as far as you know, if you are willing to pay more, does it mean that the overall demand is going to increase? Or does it merely mean that you're competing against one another? And under this competition, would the project costs be further driven up? I'd like to know what the situation is. Earlier, we approved other land studies in the Hong Kong boundary crossing facilities with regards to the use of land in the artificial island. In your study, can you ensure that you wouldn't have to overturn certain work in order to cope with future designs? With regards to the costs of our materials, for most materials we have seen an increase in prices. Some materials have to be imported. If we have enough supply, as long as we have enough supply, even if the costs have increased, the tenderers can still secure the materials, and this is not a case of competition, and we won't have any problems. According to the paper, the supply of materials such as concrete blocks, right now we face a shortage, and these are used for reclamation, and there's no competition among the major infrastructures of Hong Kong. And in terms of the use of land, I think you were referring to the superstructures currently being studied by the CDB. And in terms of design, these projects can mutually exist. The sites they are studying right now are located underground or in aerial locations. In the superstructures and underground facilities of this project, can the director ensure that we won't have to remove any existing facilities under this project? Thank you, Chairman. The sites they are currently studying for development are not located in the clearance facilities of our project, so no structures would have to be removed. The sites they are planning on are all empty or vacant sites. Mr. Michael Tian. Chairman. For the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macao Bridge project, our original estimation was to spend about 100 billion for 4 to 5 works, and now we have an overrun of $9 billion, and today you're asking for an extra $5.4 billion. If you add the original $110 billion, we are looking at $11.5 billion. So what happens with the 44 billion spent for the Tuen Mun Chek Lap Kok link? And we still need another $6 or $7 billion. So at the end, the total project cost would become $120 billion. So you are coming for extra funds stage after stage by stage, and we are now facing a project overrun of $20 billion. And for the Tuen Mun Chek Lap Kok link, the figure stands at $44.7 billion. the biggest problem with this bridge is that we have a Tuen Mun West bypass coming up, and there have been a lot of controversies, and this viaduct is shelved. And during a panel meeting, the director of highways told us that they are still studying the design. And as of now, with regards to the Tuen Mun West bypass, I just want to let you know why Tuen Mun West is so important. By the time the bridge is commissioned, we would not know the volume of traffic being processed. So nobody pays a lot of attention to the Tuen Mun West bypass, but it can potentially cause problems. We are at June 2015, and we still don't have a consensus on which way to go. And according to the Tuen Mun District Council, they are of the opinion that the revised proposal is even worse than before, and the district councillors have different views on the issue. So what's the latest update on the project? And we are talking about mega projects of $100 billion or more. If you don't iron out all the problems, we are going to see issues who can address this problem. Undersecretary, I understand the concerns of Mr. Tian and the district councils. They might be worried about the Tuen Mun West bypass and the relevant traffic facilities. I'd just like to stress that we haven't applied for funding from the Legislative Council. It might not be relevant to the item we are discussing today, Chairman. If you can address Mr. Tian's question, please give him at least a brief reply. Do you have an answer? The Tuen Mun West bypass is a link road between Chek Lap Kok and Tuen Mun. It acts as a triage station, and right now we are discussing with the Tuen Mun District Council on the placement of exits. We agree that it's necessary, but the actual routing is something we have to discuss. We have not applied for any funds from the Legislative Council. When have you started discussions? Was it 10 years ago? Undersecretary, can you answer this question? As I understand, his question is not directly related to the item we are discussing today, but you cannot say they are irrelevant, because if you approve the funds, if you are able to complete the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macao Bridge, one of the exits would be located in Tuen Mun. If the vehicles cannot go there, so what happens to vehicles at that section of bridge? So you cannot say they are irrelevant, but I understand that you're not prepared for that question today. Would the Undersecretary be willing to supplement us with extra information after the meeting? Chairman, I'd just like to say that I support this bridge. I feel that it's essential. But I just have a concern on the connectivity. And the government has been very weak over the years, and they are bulging in the face of complaints. And once the link road between Chek Lap Kok and Tuen Mun is completed, there will still be a lot of complaints. So can the government take a tougher stance and just opt for one of the options? And the bridge should be connected to Chek-Lap-Kok, and I'm just concerned about potential delays. Having heard what Mr. Tian said, I agree that this is irrelevant to the item being discussed today because he's supportive of this project. But after the meeting, please address his question on whether or not you would adopt a tougher stance. Second round, Dr. K.K. Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. Whether the Tuen Mun West bypass is built is not important. This project is a big elephant, and the reality is that we will go ahead no matter what, and regardless of project overruns. The assessment on the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macao Bridge is very strange. In the past, such assessments are based on cargo volumes, but in recent years, the throughputs of cargo terminals in the mainland have been increasing. So do the cargoes really need to reach Hong Kong or Kwai Chung via this bridge? I'm very doubtful. I'd like to know more figures. What do the figures look like in the last 2 or 3 years? What are the extents of the drops? Chairman, I don't have such information on hand. This is ridiculous. Why are they coming here without this information? They're saying that more and more people would be using this bridge, but they cannot even provide statistics on such drops. Dr. Kwok, by the figures, are you referring to the cargo volume? I'm referring to the volumes of cargoes that's transferred to Hong Kong, whether there have been any increases or drops. If the bridge allows all vehicles to come to Hong Kong, then we would have a big problem. Right now, trucks from the mainland have to use other roads, so this would not affect the traffic of Hong Kong. Right now, they say that vehicles in the mainland would not be allowed to come to Hong Kong directly. You are spending $110 billion among other costs. Your premise is that the cargo volumes would be ever increasing, and we need the facilities to deal with it. So I'd like to know the current trend so that the public knows as well. In the past 5 years, the throughputs at our cargo terminals have remained rather stable, and there have been slight drops in recent years. But in the future, we estimate a rather stable increase.
I'll give you the figures after the meeting. What I can say is that from what we see, most of the containers come from Shenzhen, that is from the north. And strengthening Hong Kong's container terminal as a hub, would involve the use of the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macao Bridge, because more cargoes can come from the west so that they don't have to go via Shenzhen to reach Hong Kong. It would save them a lot of time. So there is strategic importance. So if you say that solely because of that the bridge is not important, it's not right. We have to strengthen the position of our container port. That's why we need the bridge, so that the Pearl River Delta West and the western side of Guangdong can reach Hong Kong easily. Well, I'm not very happy because they can't give us the figures, and we're talking about $110 billion. You told us that there is a steady increase in our container throughput, but the increase is so minute that it's not worth spending another $110 billion. You may as well build a lot more roads or bridges, but I can tell you that it involves precious resources, and for every road open, the places along the alignment will be affected. And I have great reservations because still at this point the government refuses to tell us the truth. Next, Mr. Ip Kok Hiem. Some people describe the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macao Bridge project as a white elephant, saying that is useless. And I think people can see why they said that. If we go from Hong Kong to Macau or Zhuhai, we have to go to Shenzhen, go to Humen, to go to Macau, or you take a ferry. So when it comes to the exchange of the two places, passenger flow, cargo flow, it's not convenient. Project cost has been increasing. We all understand why. We all understand why there is a delay. Were it not for the fact that a granny was egged on to take out a judicial review, it would not have been like this. Last month, I went to the sites near the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macao Bridge. The construction of the bridge requires a lot of skills. Mr. Lo Wai Kwok mentioned about caissons. You need a very high technical standard to do it. Of course, if we're very concerned about cost overrun. And the paper has already explained about increasing prices in plant, machinery, and wages. We hope that there will be good monitoring system in place to keep the cost overrun in check. I support this bridge. I believe that this is an important bridge to connect Hong Kong and the mainland. Paragraph 19, you have set out a number of reasons explaining the increase in project cost. And, well, there is also the viaducts and the vehicular underpass. You have to transport something that weighs 80,000 tons to the sea. And there is also sewerage works, water works, drainage works. Well, why would you say that it's a major cost increase? Is it because they've all been added underground? Director. The BCP has its own sewerage works, so we will have to take that into account in the construction. We have to also lay pipes to drain away the sewerage to sewage treatment plants. So is it the case that in one single pipe there will be utilities, cables, drainage pipes, all in one? May I add that yes, there is a common trench serving two purposes. Well, the immigration officers can use it to reach the checkpoints, and it will also accommodate utility cables and pipes. Mr. Albert Chan, I think the DAB is now selling fake medicine, and Yip Kwok Him, the chairman, blamed the judicial review for the delay. We see that in the past 2-3 years, for projects with serious cost overrun by, say, 30% to 50%, there has not been any judicial review in these projects. And the percentage of increase in this one is only just 10% or so, from an increase by about $5.4 billion. So from $30 billion to $35 billion. So compared to recent projects with cost overrun, it's smaller, but it doesn't mean that we accept that. So you blame the cost overrun on the judicial review, illustrate that they twist and distort the facts, and that is a tactic they use. Is one that is often used by Hong Kong communists. It really has put their trick to distort and twist in full display. The government is actually the main reason why there is a cost overrun. Back then, I pointed out that given the the traffic volume, no conglomerate will be interested. When the government said they would like to give it to a conglomerate to do it, well, and it turned out that that is what I said, and there was a delay of a year or so. Well, DAB doesn't really know about traffic volume, and they just blindly support the government. I have to set the record straight. People cannot be fooled by the DAB. It's just like when we fight for genuine universal suffrage, they propose a bogus universal suffrage and selling it as if it was genuine. Well, we have the permanent secretary of the Environment Bureau here. I pointed out that this project will be a disaster for dolphins. Noise pollution, disturbance coming from the vessels. And I think dolphins in Hong Kong is suffering most. It's worse than when the airport was under construction. The number of dolphins sighted in Hong Kong has dropped to a new low. It's because of political parties and government who twist and distort and try to muddle through. I think they have practically annihilated all the dolphins here. And another thing is the environment the EIA, the Environment Impact Assessment, is another fake. If you don't have sufficient time during the meeting, well, when a legislator move a motion for adjournment or when this item goes to the Finance Committee, please give us a full report in writing. Tell us, the EIA done, how's it compared with this day or the previous days? How is it different? And how many dolphins have survived this disaster? Do you want a verbal answer? A written one will do. I think there is an undertaking to give us a written reply. Speaking for the first time, Mr. Albert Ho. I'll be brief, and I hope that I will get a clear answer. If they can't, they can give us a written reply. You see that for the current completion date is 2016, and it said that there will be great difficulty. So when do you think it will be completed? And when it's completed, will it be connected to the Western Bypass? And if not, what are you going to do? Under Secretary, can you answer? There are two parts to Mr. Ho's question. First of all, well, this bridge straddles mainland and Hong Kong, and the Zhuhai section is under the purview of the mainland authority, and the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macao Bridge Authority. And we see that there is difficulty for the bridge to be completed in 2016. The government of the three places and the bridge authority have been doing some analysis to find out when the bridge will be completed and commissioned. In relation to the Tuen Mun West bypass, the completion date is not to dovetail with that of the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macao Bridge. As I said previously, well, the Western Bypass has yet to come to the LegCo to get funding. We have to deal with the comments we received from the district before we come to the LegCo. So the plan is not to connect the two immediately. The Tuen Mun Chek Lap Kok link will be completed in 2018. The transport network will link up the Tuen Mun Highway and main roads in Tuen Mun. Mr. Yip Kwok Kim. Sorry, speakers off mic. Dr. Kwok Ki, under PWSC procedure paragraph 33 moves a motion to ask the subcommittee to adjourn PWSC bracket 2015-16 number 14. So in accordance with paragraph 33, members may speak on this motion, but no more than once. And the time has to be kept within the time decided by the subcommittee. Well, I decide that speakers may not speak for more than 3 minutes. Members who would like to speak should press the press to speak button.
Excuse me, the Secretariat has something to say. Okay, the Secretary told me that according to Rule 33, the moving a motion, you would have to raise it when it's your chance to speak. Right now, Mr. Yip Kwok Him and Michael Tian are waiting to speak. You have to wait for the next round. Mr. Yip Kwok Him, please. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for abiding to the rules of procedure. On Mr. Albert Chan's ungrounded accusations, I'd like to condemn him deeply. These people like him have always been putting blames around. What I said was that everyone knows about the project overruns. And let's get the facts straight. We have to let the public of Hong Kong know who are the ones who are compromising Hong Kong's economy and developments. And some legislators are saying that they are monitoring the government, but have they proposed any constructive recommendations? I'd just like to let the Hong Kong public know that these legislators are putting accusations around. And this is something the public has to know. And whether at the Finance Committee or Public Works Subcommittee, I was merely voicing my concerns on Kong-Zhuhai-Macao on the lack of marine resources, but yet I was accused without reason. I hope our lawmakers can make judgments and facilitate discussions according to the facts. And I want to let the public know that Hong Kong needs to develop itself. And if these accusations are allowed to continue, we can hardly move forward. If this is the attitude the lawmakers are going to persist with. So once again, I'd like to condemn Mr. Albert Chan for his ungrounded accusations. As chairman, I'd like to remind members to focus your discussions on items relating to the item. I allow Mr. Ip to speak because Mr. Albert Chan was the one who mentioned his name at the first place. So I'd like to remind members not to speak on anything outside of the scope of the agenda. Mr. Chen Han-pen, first round, please. Mr. Ip Kwok-him, I respect what you just said. I hope you should give a verdict in similar cases in future. Mr. Chen Han-pen, for the first round, please. The project faced various obstacles, including judicial reviews. For similar projects in the past, we have encountered filibustering. So naturally, the project costs would increase. So who are the ones who are actually hindering Hong Kong? I think it's obvious. I think there is no need to throw accusations around. The public can see very clearly who are the culprits. And some members moved a motion to adjourn proceedings. And the Pan-Democrats are the majority at the PWSC. If you don't support this project, you can vote it down. But yet you have opted to adjourn proceedings, and as such, there would be further delays, costs to these items. And after that, we would face even higher costs, and you would accuse the government further. So everything's twisted, essentially. And according to the latest tender prices, they appear to be higher than expected. And you have target commencement dates, and the tenderers are very aware that the government does not have enough labor, and yet they have to meet deadlines, and they are taking advantage of the situation. If we push the commissioning dates a little bit further back, we might you might be able to save some money. Would you consider pushing back the commissioning dates so that the tender prices would be lower? Undersecretary, we did actually consider this possibility, so perhaps the Highways Department can elaborate on that. Thank you very much for the question. Right now, there are 10 contracts under this project, and 7 of them have been tendered out. We need to continue our works on these 7 contracts under the projects, and right now we don't foresee any delays. When the contracts were granted, we have introduced phased arrangements for facilities that are not urgent in nature. We have afforded the tenderers longer construction times, and as such, we hope to increase the amount of time available and decrease the project costs. So this is one measure we have adopted to control project costs. What are the differences between the original and current target construction periods? Under the contracts, we have offered an extra 1 year for non-essential works, so that tenderers can make a better use of their resources and relieve their pressures. Second round, Mr. Michael Tian. Chairman, I wasn't able to respond to the question by the Undersecretary. The government is coming back time and again for funds for such mega projects. I think this is a practice that should be improved in future. If I take down my house and rebuild it, and if I divide the rebuilding into 4 stages, then and I come back for $1 million each time. And if you see any delays in the first stage, it might affect the latter stages. So you cannot come back to us every time saying that you have overruns and how the latter stages would be affected. I hope this is not the mentality the government will stick with in the future. My concern is that once the bridge is commissioned, the current target completion date of the Tuen Mun Chalap-Kok link is 2018. As far as I know, there are lots of opposing voices in Tuen Mun. If the Tuen Mun West bypass would not be connected to the bridge, what happens to the vehicles? But the government cannot solve all the worries at the Tuen Mun District Council. So in the remaining $44 billion, what happens? However, the Undersecretary mentioned a new point. And by 2019, when the Chalap-Kok link is completed, if the Tuen Mun West bypass is not completed at that time, can the existing roads in Tuen Mun take up the vehicles from this bridge? You said the bypass has no correlation with the Chalap-Kok Tuen Mun link. This is a point I have not heard before. Can you clarify that? Undersecretary, with regards to Mr. Tian's question, in our original design of the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macao Bridge and the connecting facilities, including the Tuen Mun Chalap-Kok link and the Tuen Mun West bypass, we did indeed have a plan. But after that, we encountered a judicial review, and as such, our plans were affected, and we had to make changes. And since we have to commission the bridge as soon as possible, non-essential works such as the road to the north of Tuen Mun were delayed or postponed to 2018. And district consultation is very important in my opinion. I just want a simple yes or no from the government. For the Tuen Mun West bypass, does the bypass have a direct link with the Chao Kok Tuen Mun link? When the Tuen Mun Chao Kok link is completed, a lot more vehicles would enter Tuen Mun. But according to our traffic assessment, up until 2016, the existing road network at Tuen Mun, including the Tuen Mun town center and other connecting roads, can still deal with the demand. So even if the bypass is not connected to the bridge, we still have some time to maneuver. You promise to provide written a written reply to Mr. Tian's question, so please do so. Next, Dr. K.K. Kwok. Please. Mr. Albert Chan. According to the Secretary, it should be Mr. Albert Chan. Excuse me. Perhaps I'll let Dr. Kwok speak first. According to Rule 33 of the rule, I would like to move a motion to adjourn proceedings. According to the rules of procedure, Rule 33, and a member move a motion to adjourn proceedings for PWSC 2015-1614. According to Rule 33, members can speak on the question, but they cannot speak for more than once, and they cannot speak for longer than any time period as decided by a subcommittee, and or where no such decision has been made for more than 3 minutes. If you wish to speak, please press the speak button. Dr. K. Kwok, 3 minutes, please. We have been discussing this item for so long, and we are left with a lot of questions, and it's a big elephant. We have questions on costs, we have questions with the link roads, so I don't wish to waste any more time, and as such I'd like to adjourn the proceedings to allow the government more time to think it over. So I'd like to adjourn the proceedings today so that we can deal with other items at the PWSC. Do other members wish to speak? Mr. Leung Chi Cheng. Chairman. If we adjourn proceedings, we can no longer discuss this item. The costs have already increased. If we stall any further, I cannot imagine how much the costs would go up. Of course, legislators have to monitor the government, but it does not mean that we should stop all works or infrastructure projects.
If we stop, it will only bring more harm. Well, if you don't understand, you can ask more questions. It's not that you're stopped from asking questions. We haven't asked all the questions, and there is an adjournment motion to stop further discussion of this item. So I object strongly to this, because you use this adjournment motion so arbitrarily. Perhaps, Chairman, you will allow the officers to answer, because once it's adjourned, I don't know when we will resume discussion, and I don't know when the government will come back with this. After members have spoken, I will ask the administration to to speak if they so wish. Does anyone wish to speak? You can press the speak button. Mr. Ban Chan. This adjournment motion is another masterpiece of the Civic Party after the judicial review of the Kong-Zhuhai-Macao Bridge, because if this motion is carried, project cost may increase again. There is a deadline to the tender. If it has to be start again, it will only be more expensive. I don't know. To what purpose Dr. Kwok moved this motion? He wants the artificial island to stop midway through its construction. We have already spent about $10 billion, losses included. I believe that the figure is much higher than this. And now you throw another bomb. This adjournment motion, I am very worried about how Hong Kong will become. What Hong Kong will become. Don't forget that this bridge links to the western side of Guangdong province. And the western part of Guangdong province has seen rapid development in manufacturing industry. With the bridge, it will greatly boost Hong Kong's economy, and I believe legislators know full well about it. Zhongshan and Shenzhen are studying about a connection. And if because of this adjournment the bridge cannot be built, we will lose a lot of opportunities and we will be further marginalized. Perhaps Pan-Democrats would like to see that. So I seriously condemn this adjournment motion. Next, Mr. Michael Tian. I am still new in this legislative term. I was in the business sector, and I got myself involved in politics because I would like to make a difference. But now I realize that the LegCo is different from what I saw before. There are more filibustering, and there are also judicial reviews. A lot of people told me that nothing gets done in the LegCo, and I was asked why I got in the first place. I said that, well, we have to give out positive vibes. When the government makes a proposal, we have to discuss in detail whether to go ahead or not. And once we've decided to go ahead, then it has to proceed very quickly, keeping the cost down, unless there is change in the situation, making us feel that we have to put a stop to it. So I want to ask members who would like to stop the bridge, what new information do they have that we no longer need this bridge? And another question. What's the use of an adjournment? We have already granted 9.2 billion, and now is the 10 billion now increased to 12 billion is also been improved, and the $44.7 billion of the Two Moon Chek Lap Kok link, I think 90% of the cost has been approved. If there's any further delay, that means the amount we have approved will be down the drain. I don't understand. why members don't want to proceed when we have already started. Well, what I don't want to see is that when the bridge is connected to the to Tuen Mun, there will be public outcry. But if the government can assure us that it will not happen, then I may support them. But what is the purpose of adjourning this discussion? Chairman, you've heard the reason, the feeble reason given by Dr. Kwok-Ka-Ki for this adjournment. It's not justified. He said that there are lots of questions. He remains unconvinced. So it has to be adjourned. If there are questions unanswered, ask them. You can ask them verbally. You can ask them in written form. You can ask to meet government officials for further discussions. And it's also your duty to ask and clarify. But of course, it depends on what questions they are. If it's not related to the paper, then you will have to seek your answers elsewhere. You said that you remain unconvinced. That's very subjective. There is a deadline. With project cost increasing, you can't just criticize. You have to think whether there is any duty on your part to make it happen. I receive a lot of notifications saying that the PWSC would like to have more meetings, and we're asked if we are free. But when we're here, you move an adjournment motion. What's the meaning of this? Will it serve any purpose? You're also from New Territories West, and a lot of people there would like to have this bridge so that we'll have more choices, so that exchange between Hong Kong and the mainland will be easier. So don't use these tactics because it can be seen by everyone. People dislike filibustering. If you go down the same path again, I don't know what you want to do. If you want to be the enemy of people, it's your choice. I just want to give you some advice. For Hong Kong's development, don't go down this path. Ask all the questions you want. The government will make better preparation to answer you. That's how we should do it. Mr. Lo Wai-Kwong, I speak to oppose to this motion. The government's request is very clear. This is Reclamation and Superstructure of the Hong Kong Border Crossing Facility. The approved project estimate is to be increased by $5,461,000,000. If you have something to say about the reasons for the proposed increase, then fire away. That's our job. If we adjourn the discussion of this item, then the project will be further delayed and there will be far-reaching implications. Because we're not just talking about a Hong Kong project. It's a multi-partite cooperation project. It's a mega project. If we delay, the entire project will be affected. There has been thorough discussion before the project is decided to before we decide to go ahead with the project. So we're now working on the detail of the project. You can ask questions. You can raise your objections. Adjournment motion is not a way to perform our duty as member of the PWSC. The administration, would you like to speak? Under Secretary. If this is adjourned, then it will delay the funding application. In order to minimize the impact of the BCP, we will try to get endorsement from the FC for the additional funding. But if we can make it, we can only resort to contingency measures. They include to delete certain facilities, say for example landscaping, clearance kiosks, and ancillary facilities, and they are not absolutely necessary at the commissioning of the bridge. But the deletion of these parts will waste money and time. If we add these facilities after the bridge has been completed, it will increase the technical difficulties, and it will also drive up cost. So if we delete these contracts and have to start tendering again, it will inevitably increase project cost. And the reduction of facilities at the border control point, it will increase waiting time, thereby causing inconvenience to the public. The operation of the BCP will be affected when works are in progress after the bridge has been completed. I have the duty to set it all out to you. You have 1 minute, Dr. Kwokaki, to reply. I've heard from the loyalists, and I'm very disappointed, because it's our duty to monitor and gatekeep. But the loyalists would very much like to be a rubber stamp. And they have completely neglected the interests of the public. We're talking about $110 billion. There are a lot of poor people. They're waiting for universal retirement protection. They're waiting for health care. And they don't get anything. Because loyalists defend the government. We still have 6 items on the agenda, most of them to do with anti-West. The government, time and time again, told us that they are determined to go ahead with this bridge. It's a waste of public money. We cannot allow that. And at the same time, they take up unnecessary projects. So I ask members to support my motion. I will now put the motion to a vote. The subcommittee decides to adjourn PWSC bracket 2015-16 number 14. Members who are in favor, please raise their hands. Dr. Kwokaki claims a division. The bell will ring for 5 minutes.
而家開始表決。
Let's begin voting. Before I announce the results, members, please verify your votes. Voting ends. The results are shown on the screen. Of the 37 attending members, 21 are in favor and 15 are in against, and we have no abstention. I announced that the motion by Dr. K.K. Kwok is passed. Let's enter the next item on the agenda, PWSC 2015-2166, item 120 KA, building a government data center complex. And the proposal recommends to the Finance Committee the upgrading of part of 120 KA to Category A at an estimated cost of $52.6 million, and the government was consulted on the 8th of December 2014, and an agreement was secured in principle, and the notes of the discussion has been tabled. And we have the CEDB and the Architectural Services Department. I'd like to invite Ms. Susie Ho, Permanent Secretary, to walk us through the paper. In order to satisfy the needs for data center services of various departments and bureaus, we propose to build a government data center complex, and the paper serves to recommend the commencement of advanced works, and the grounds have been mentioned, so I do not wish to repeat myself, and these are listed under paragraphs 6 to 9. And in Changsha 1, most of the land lots are used for industrial and commercial buildings, and a data center would be compatible with the land use. And the area was about 12,400 square meters, and it's although it's rather small, it's enough for a data center complex. And data and electricity support is required, and as such, this land lot is an ideal location. And when this item was discussed at the panel meetings, members did have certain questions, and some members raised the possibility of building the complex in Chengguan-O, and we feel that the Chengguan-O should be used for similar data centers by the IT trade, and the government considered the telecommunication and electricity needs of the data center complex, and as such, we chose the Kingdom Street lots at Changsha 1, and we would like to lower the operating costs and improve greening measures. And in terms of greening, we would introduce more greens, including vertical greening, and at the rooftop level. And the greening ratio is at least 20%, and the government would provide more green landscaping. And we would use a design and build contract, and we will hire consultants for advanced works for design of the complex, topological studies, etc., pending the PWSC's approval. The works would commence in the fourth quarter of 2015. Mr. Charles Mok, I support this proposal. Hong Kong is a regional data center hub, but the government's facilities are outdated, and the complex at Wan Chai would have to be relocated. We are already lagging behind, and we've been discussing it for a long time. We've been talking about the choice of sites. We are only talking about $50 or so million for advanced works. Perhaps the government can tell us when this center can be commissioned. And by having an integrated data center complex, the government can solve worries on data security, the promotion of e-government services. The complex is rather essential. The government is also planning the next complex, actually, and after this complex is commissioned, it would be saturated within a rather short time, and it would need to be expanded. Can you let us know your schedule? And in the next phase, what would you do if further expansion is needed? The retention of the remainder of 120 KA in Category B, when would it be? When would the work be completed? If everything goes according to plan, it would be completed by 2020. Of course, we have to overcome certain difficulties first. We would monitor the demands for data centers, and we will also look at the availability of land. It's also a major obstacle. Mr. Michael Tian. I don't understand the government's overall policy on data centers. Apart from this data center complex, some services would need to be outsourced because the complex alone cannot tackle all problems. And you have to rent the server racks. How much do you have to spend every year? If you outsource these services, how much do you have to spend? And how much would the project cost in total? So I'd just like to know whether it's cheaper to do it in-house or have it outsourced. Permanent Secretary. Mr. Tam. Right now, some of our data centers are outsourced. For outsourced data centers, each server rack would cost $200,000 to $400,000 per year. If we have our own data center, the cost of the racks would be lower. All right, so the range would be $200,000 to $40,000 a year. And if you have 1,400 racks per year, it comes to $400,000 or so, assuming the land is free. For civil and server racks, what is the total amount you have to spend, Ms. Lam? We have to first conduct a consultancy study, but according to market rates, we would require $1 to $2 billion to build this data center complex. When it's commenced, what's the annual operating costs for maintenance and operations? We have to spend about 15 to 18% of the costs of the construction costs. So compared with outsourcing your services, compared with $400,000 spent in rental per year, you would break even in 5 or 6 years, right? Having considered the initial costs, these are only our estimates. We can break even in 8 or 9 years. How long can this complex be in operation? At least 25 years. So you can save a lot, right? So why would you outsource the services? Why don't you secure a bigger land lot and do everything in-house? If you can break even in 8 or 9 years, and if the complex can last for at least 25 years, then it's good business. Some data center services are not long-term. some services are rather short-term. So does it mean that you won't need a bigger data center and continue to outsource part of the services, right? That's not what I meant. We would adopt a gradual approach. The government should have a holistic and well-thought plan, right? Some departments and bureaus have certain operational needs, and they might require their own data center.
Sometimes it can be contracted out, especially when data storage doesn't require extra security. So while contracting out the service, is it your policy or is it because you can't find land? Well, data centers are quite old. So we contract out this service because we don't have sufficient data center land. Then why don't you build a bigger one? Build a bigger center? But it depends on demand. But you just told us that there is demand. Well, the proposed data center will meet the current need of departments. We're in contact with the departments and we know of the demand. We think that 1,400 racks will meet the demand for 5 to 10 years after 2020. Mr. Albert Ho. Well, demand will only increase. And from what I've heard, well, you're only talking about a few years after 2020. If you need a lot of data centers, then I'd like to ask if you have a proper plan. Why don't you use industrial estates? Why do you have to identify land in urban area? OGCIO? PS? Let me try. We have had a consultancy study done to see the effectiveness or efficiency of a central data center. Currently, we have about 25 data centers operating. Some of them are built in departments or their own offices. They're operating well. Perhaps in the future the capacity will not be enough, but now is sufficient. But for some other data centers, it's already reached capacity, and so they have to use outside service. And if we can centralize the provision of a data center, it will be more cost effective. We're aware of certain demand from departments. If we can have this center, we can meet data center that have already saturated or outside services being used. And for those departments who are still using their own data center, then they will be left untouched. We see that the few years after 2020, we will be able to meet demand with this new center. And as to the stage after that, we have to identify demand and then identify land. If we build a massive data center, then it may not be efficient. We have tried identifying land in Chong Kwan O. The sites are huge. And we have plans to run commercial data center, not government ones. So Chongqing sites are more suitable for commercial data centers, not one for the government. We have taken into account all these factors. We have identified this site, albeit smaller, it will be able to meet demand. For longer term, we will continue to monitor the situation. Does the data center have to be close to the institution using the data? For some, yes. Say, for example, those that use multimedia, and sometimes for departments that use a lot of papers, say for example Inland Revenue. For some others, there is no such need, so it depends on the nature of the business. Next, Mr. Loy Kwok. Thank you. I strongly support this project. There is one point that is mentioned in the paper. There is a plan to reprovision the 3 government buildings in Wan Chai. The data center has to be moved as well, and there is an urgency. Well, actually, some members have already asked a similar question. Perhaps the government can give us some more information afterwards. So, from now to the completion of the data center, what is the data center service distribution? Say, for example, how much will this new data center handle in percentage? And what is the percentage of other data centers, and what is the percentage of outside service? Please supply us an information paper after the meeting. I think that suffices. Unless government officials would like to give us a verbal reply, I'm happy with information paper after the meeting. Can you do that? Yes. Next, Ms. An Chang. Thank you. I heard just now from the government that Chongqing Old Industrial Estate has the land. I thought there wasn't. That's why you had to find somewhere else, and it so happened that there is a site available in Chengsha Wan. But now I find out that there is land in Chongqing O. Why don't you go to Chongqing O? Because the optical fiber cable will actually land there, and there will also be a lot of big data centers there. You said that well, the business data centers will require large plot of land. Well, if you don't need that a large plot of land, then you use smaller ones. If you now go to Chengsha Wan, you will have to connect the optical fiber and cable, so there will be extra cost. As you know, that data centers use a lot of electricity, and they run round the clock. So you do need backup power. Can you recall a number of days ago, Dr. Kokaki brought with him a backup generator. It's quite small, and it has drawn the attention of security guards because there is fuel in the generator. What if there's an explosion? And if we're talking about a power generator, well, the fuel tank is huge. What if there is an explosion? And there are lots of people living in Chengsha Wan. It's quite densely populated. If there is an explosion, there will be loss in life and property. Have you considered that? P.S. Let me first answer the part about Chongqing O. Apart from Chongguano Industrial Estate, there are other sites in Chongguano. And under our data center policy, we would like to leave these sites for commercial data centers. Well, we have already sold one site, and there is still one left, but we would intend to use it for data center high end. It's not suitable for government use because we have the need for business development. And for when it comes to industrial estates, well, there is actually an adjustment in the policy. And well, the use of sites in industrial estates is actually overseen by the science park, and they don't intend to use all the sites as data center. And on top of that, there is also difficulties in land identification. So we have to strike a balance between government data center and commercial ones. When it comes to safety issues, I would defer to Mr. Lam, the GCIO. Well, about power supply and optical fiber connection. With King Lam Street, there is a power substation. It's 370 meters from the site. In Samwong Street, there is another substation. The distance is about 650 meters. So the two substations can supply power to the proposed data center. When it comes to optical fiber, there's no problem because it's an urban area. So we only need just a few days or at most several months to lay optical fiber. When it comes to security considerations, it will be covered by the consultancy report to make sure that there is no risk of explosion. Ms. Chang, anything to add? Well, you put a huge fuel tank there. Of course, there will be danger. But how can you ensure that there won't be a massive explosion? I would defer to the ASD. Director for AS, please. When it comes to fuel tanks, we've actually conducted a risk assessment. We reckon that the fuel tank will be underground. And the Fire Services Department has been consulted about special requirements. And when it comes to the architecture, we will make sure that the construction will meet safety and fire services standards. If there are no other questions, I will put this item to a vote. Those in favor, please raise their hands. Those against, please raise their hands. I think majority of members present voted for this item. Item 3, that is Head 705, Civil Engineering, paper number PWSC, bracket 2015-16, number 17. Is a 54 DP, further enhancing quality of coastal waters of Victoria Harbour. This paper is to upgrade to Cat A at an estimated cost of 89.4 million money of today prices. Well, this item has gone to the Environment Affairs panel on the 24th of November last year, and it has got the support of members from. And the government has also supplied supplementary information on the 19th of March this year. You'll find the salient discussion points of the panel in front of you. We have government officials from the Environment Bureau. So who is to take questions? Deputy Director of the EPD. Well, with the HATS being commissioned in 2001, there has been improvement in the water quality of Victoria Harbour. We think that with the Phase 2A of the works being commissioned, water quality will be further enhanced. We see that there is also a residual problem is along coastal water. There is odor and some sewerage problems. In order to deal with this, we I have done some studies and found that it's quite complicated because these residual affluents came from the urban area. So we propose to conduct a study to identify the source of the pollution and to formulate improvement measures and work out a timetable.
For the study, we would need to spend $89.4 million, and pending FC approval, the study will be commenced in early 2016 for completion in early 2018. We have to involve various government departments, and as such, we will establish a cross-departmental group to monitor the progress of the study. Any comments from members? Ms. Helena Wong. Chairman, I support the government's proposal to improve the quality of coastal waters of Victoria Harbour. At Hong Ham, along the coast of Hong Ham, we can detect odor along the water, and even though there are parks along the coast, they have not been very popular because of the issue of odor. So my question is, the government is now coming here for studies, and it means that you still do not know the source of these odor. Is it because domestic effluents are being poured into the storm drains, or is it a problem with the connecting pipes, or is it because of trash being dumped by ships? Is it? Are you conducting this study because you do not know the cause of these problems? Deputy Director, the government has different measures to deal with this type of pollution. You mentioned storm drains and affluents from public markets, and the dealing with sludge. I think this is something the government has been dealing with in recent years. But we realize that the pace of our work is not up to scratch, and there are different sources of pollutants, and some originate from typhoon shelters, and we have actually talked with various academics from different universities, and they feel that the source of odor is different in different districts, and different technologies are required to alleviate the problem. And in Kai-Tak, we experimented with the approach of bioremediation to deal with odor, and we found that even at the Kai-Tak NOLA, this approach is only partly useful. So for other districts, we need to conduct further studies to pinpoint the sources of odor, and we need to know the natures of the odor as well. And we have to commission specific studies for each district in order to come up with effective and concrete solutions. So that's why we recommend a comprehensive study to deal with the whole issue. Ms. Helena Wong. Right now, you do not know the source of odor along coastal waters in different districts, and as such, you want to conduct a study. But you won't see results anytime soon. So what have you done so far? Before you see the results, does it mean that you are not doing anything? Deputy Director, as I mentioned, we have pinpointed misconnection of sewage pipes in different districts. We will work with the buildings department as well as the FEHD to deal with the sewage. And we also work with the Drainage Services Department to build or install dry weather flow interceptors. And we would also work with other departments at typhoon shelters to deal with the sludge. But as I said, since our work is not pinpointed enough, we cannot, even if we can manage to improve the issue in some districts, the extent is not extensive enough. Right now, is sewage being discharged into Victoria Harbour without treatment? In our harbour area treatment scheme for stage 1, we already dealt with sewage from Kowloon through the Stonecutters Bridge sewage treatment plant, and another plant will be in operation later this year to deal with sewage from Hong Kong Island, and they would also be transferred to Stonecutters Bridge plants. But that says we still have some residual sewage. Some old buildings would send the sewage to storm drains, and sewage from some restaurants might also go into the storm drains. And the excrements of cats and dogs might also go into our harbor. So we really have to deal with the source of these effluents, and work has to be done. If members have no other questions, I would put this item to the vote. Those in favor, please raise your hands. Those against, please raise your hands. The majority of the members are in favor of this item. It's passed. We now enter item 4 of our agenda. The time is now 10:22. We still have a number of items left on the agenda. I'd like to extend the meeting to 10:45 a.m. Any objections? If not, let's move on. Item 4 on waterworks, PWSC 2015-1618, item 357 WF, design and construction for first stage of desalination plant at Tseung Kwan O. The paper recommends the upgrading of part of 357 WF to category A at an estimated cost of 154.5 million in money of the day prices. And on the 24th of March 2015, the government consulted the panel on development on the proposed work, and members support the administration, and the proposal has been tabled to the subcommittee, and the key points have been shared with members. We have representatives from the Water Supplies Department today. Director of Water Supplies, please. Simply put, the paper is about a desalination plant at Tseung Kwan O, and we want to conduct detailed design works so that we can tender the project next year. Because of climate change and various issues with the water supply from Dongjiang, and with rising demands after 2020, we might have safety issues with our water supply. And more than 10 years ago, we have started studying desalination technologies, and it's rather mature today. And as such, we feel that it's time for the first stage of the first desalination plant. We have received a land lot of 14 hectares in Tseung Kwan O for the first stage of the plant. And in the design stage, we hope to commission studies and conducts site investigation works. And hopefully by 2020, from 2017, we can complete part of the work, and the rest has been outlined in paper. Mr. Kenneth Leung. Thank you, Chairman. I support this project. And in Israel, they have a big desalination plant, and the capacity is 600 million cubic meters, and it can support 70% of Israel in terms of water usage. So apart from a stable supply of water, this is also a technical project. When our technologies mature, we should promote this technology in Hong Kong. This plant is divided into stages 1 and 2, and when stage 2 is completed, the capacity would be driven up to 270,000 cubic meters per day. When this plant is completed, would we have extra land in the vicinity for stage 3 expansion? That's my first question. And the second question is, for the current technology, reverse osmosis use, is it cheaper and more advanced than the technology currently used in Singapore? Can you tell us the cost per cubic meter of water processing? Right now, the current 10 hectares is enough for both stages of the plant, and these two stages can satisfy 10% of the water use in Hong Kong. If we have a stage 3 eventually, we would seek land elsewhere. And for the water treatment facility, the reverse osmosis technology used is the same used in Singapore and many other countries. And we need membranes for reverse osmosis, and the thickness of these membranes would differ, and the seawater quality would also differ. We are monitoring the latest technologies, and we see that the cost would decrease in the future. And the per cubic meter cost is $12 to $13 at the moment, compared with Singapore. Well, in Singapore, we have to consider 3 parts when we talk about the cost. First, it is the infrastructure cost. There's a difference between Singapore and Hong Kong, and in terms of electricity consumption, the per cubic electricity consumption is comparable to Singapore, and their tariffs differ from Hong Kong. And we also have to look at the quality of seawater. The seawater quality in Hong Kong is relatively less stable, and this would also affect the costs. So the current level of $12 to $13 per cubic meter is at a median when compared with other countries. And I have another question on seawater quality. According to some science magazines, if you extract seawater at the boundaries between seawater and freshwater, the efficiency might be lowered. So where would you extract seawater? We would extract seawater to the south of Cheung Kwan O. And when we consider seawater and freshwater, we have to consider the clarity as well. And the clarity of the seawater must be relatively stable. And we have to consider the maintenance of the plant in the future. So having considered different factors, we decided to go for the south of Cheung Kwan O. And the salinity level is right, at that spot. Mr. Dennis Kwok, I'm fully supportive of the desalination plants. As I've said in many other occasions, we cannot rely on Dongjiang for water in the long time because they have safety and availability concerns, so we cannot rely on Dongjiang in the long run. But the current planning process is too slow and the scope is not wide enough. Even when stage 2 is completed, the plant can only process 10% of the water in Hong Kong, and this is completely inadequate. With the shortage of water and pollution of water at source are problems we will face in the next 10 or 20 years.
It's not just 5%. When can we rely on desalinated water as our main water supply? I hope when government officials consider this, they have to think in depth and don't just do this as a window dressing project, so that you can tell people that we have seawater desalination. There is the reverse osmosis. I know that it consumes a lot of energy. So have you put in place supporting measures for the energy consumption? If we use seawater desalination, say for example, to supply us 30 to 40% of our water, will you take into account power consumption into account? So would there be supporting facilities to support seawater desalination? Director for Water Supplies. When as to how much of our water supply will come from seawater desalination and other sources, well, when it comes to the first desalination plant, we have to consider the cost effectiveness. Well, it will cost about $12 to $13 for every cubic meter. Comparing to Dongjiang water, which is $8 to $9, there is still a big gap. With time, this gap will be narrowed. We have about 10 hectares of land. We don't just want to have a small plant. We have accommodated the need to expand the scale of the plant. Location itself is very important. We just don't want a plant to be close to seawater because the water, after being treated, will have to be supplied to other places. We can first have one plant and then we can add on to it. If we can get funding support for the design of this plant, we plan to start tendering exercise next year. We will start the design work at the end of this year. Next year, we can start with tendering exercise for the work to start in 2017. We have expedited the progress. Apart from the plant, we also have to build a big pipe, and we use our internal resources to do it, so that the completion of the plant can be expedited. We will keep in mind demand and whether there is a reduction in power consumption before we will plan further ahead. I hope the government will start thinking about a second plan or to find a second site for desalination plant, because obviously the demand will increase. It will not decrease. So you have to start thinking about it. We will consider whether there is a need to build another desalination plant. Mr. Albert Ho, well, previously there was a seawater desalination plant in Hong Kong. I think it was about 30 years ago in the Castle Peak Road in Tuen Mun. Because of the low cost effectiveness, the plant was decommissioned, and the plant has been dismantled as well. Now with new technology, the cost is about $12 to $13. What's the comparison between that and Dongjiang water? Dongjiang water is about $9, $8 to $9, more $9 than $8. So the difference is about 30%, about $3. This reverse osmosis, it uses a lot of electricity. So it depends on the electricity tariff. So if the tariff increases, then the cost will increase. So have you taken into account capital investment as well? For capital investment, it has been taken into account, but the other has not. The land price has not been taken into account. That is the 10 hectares. Well, when we get funding when we make a funding application for the construction of the plant, we will take that into account. So what is the highest capacity? How much will it account for in our supply? First phase 10%, 5%, second phase 10%. Well, you tested it in Tuen Mun, and there are a number of problems identified. Where to get the water, and after treatment, there is some water with a high concentration of salt. How do you deal with that? Well, it's just like any other plants in other places. The general practice is to discharge it by dispersion. And we have spent a year to do this, to see whether the use of the method of dispersion will not affect the environment. In Chong Kwan O, it can be done. In Singapore and Australia, this is the method used to deal with water of high salt concentration. So, how much more would you like to increase the supply of water by the use of desalination? Currently is 10%, and as to whether it will be further enhanced to 20 or 30%, it depends on cost and whether there is a new technology to reduce energy consumption. The desalination plant in Tuen Mun, it used distillation, and it's used much more electricity. In 2002, we did a study. We found that the use of distillation is a very energy-consuming way to desalinate seawater. We have to monitor the figures to see if energy consumption will reduce and whether the cost for electricity consumption will be reduced. What about Dongjiang water? Well, the supply of Dongjiang water is all right. What we're concerned is just droughts, because other mainland cities rely on Dongjiang for water supply as well. So what we're concerned about the drought which is brought by a climate change, we would like to rely on something more reliable like desalination. Mr. Lo Kwok. Well, this involves only part of 357WF to be upgraded to Cat A. And that is in relation to investigation, study, review, design, and site investigation. When it comes to the actual construction, that is, the remainder of 357WF is retained at Cat B. That's the actual construction of the plant. Of course, you would like to get the $154.5 million to carry out the work. And the remainder of the project, that is the actual construction, can you give us a preliminary estimate of the project costs? And paragraph 9 of the paper, you mention about the objective. That is, you suppose the plant will start its operation in 2020. I'm quite concerned about this because we're still talking about investigation, study reviews, etc. So when it comes to actual construction and operation, can it be done in just 5 years? Is it just overly optimistic on your part? We now apply for funding for a detailed design. We think that it will be about $9 billion, and that includes phase 2 facilities, say for example water ingress, egress, and there's also the administration building. So the $9 billion figure is just a ballpark figure. Once we have engaged a consultant, we will have a better idea. And if we start the work at the end of this year, we can start tendering next year. And hopefully there will be a contractor, because it's a contractor responsible for construction and design. Looking at overseas experience, it will take about 3 to 4 years to build a medium-sized desalination plant. And we will try to compress advanced work. Say, for example, for a plant, we need pipes. We have already asked, have it done internally. And we do think that commissioning it in 2020 is an achievable goal. There is still one member, Mr. Wu Chi-wai, who's waiting. And the time is under 4 minutes to the scheduled ending time. Mr. Wu, would you mind waiting for next time, or are you going to be very brief? I'm going to be very brief. I don't see any specifications in relation to energy conservation. Would you incorporate that into the terms of the tender document? And in relation to this site, what is the planning? Yes, to the first question, we asked the contractor to save as much energy as possible. And the current planning is for industrial, and we can just change the land use. If there are no other members who would like to ask questions, I'll put this item to a vote. Those in favor, please raise their hands. Those against, please raise their hands. I think majority of members who have voted agree with this proposal. This item is endorsed. So we have voted and endorsed 3 items, and they will be submitted to the FC on the 3rd of July. So I'd like to ask members, would you like any of these items to be voted on separately? No indication. The next meeting will be on the 17th of June. However, the government asked for it to be put forward to the 16th of June, which is a Tuesday at from 9 to 12. If members agree, the next meeting will take place at 9 o'clock on the 16th of June. Thank you.